Good afternoon, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. How we doing out there? Welcome to Ready Set Live here with Ready Set Crypto. You've got Doc Severson here, myself in Greenville, South Carolina, and we have Mav coming to you from the left coast of America, Los
Howdy,
Angeles. How we doing out there, everybody? Let us know where you're dialing in from today. Oh, let's see. Am I going to crush Coinbase today? No. Well, I mean, if you guys speak nicely to me, I will let Coinbase stay up. I will deem it within my purview to keep it up. So we're gonna hold off here for a couple of seconds, let people get on board, and then we are gonna cruise into our weekly hour. Sorry for missing you guys last week. I had the gall to go out to LA and visit Mav. And we got together for several very productive days. And I got a chance to see where he's living these days. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit jealous. LA is very, very beautiful. That is not at all the poverty infested, homeless infested slum that everybody leads you to believe it is. All right. So we got Croatia in the house. We got California. We got Montana. We got San Antonio. I love the Riverwalk. And hopefully, guys, let me know. Hopefully I've fixed my microphone. Somebody was pointing out last week that there was a lot of ambient noise, and I realized it was on the wrong mic. It was on this guy right there, which is not a good microphone. So thanks for pointing that out. We've got Sudan in the house. We've got somebody dialing in from the kitchen. I shouldn't use that term dialing. That probably labels me as a boomer, doesn't it? Okay.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. We got Stockholm. We've got Amsterdam. We have got OHIO from Mordhau. Good to see you guys out there. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome if you're just tuning in here. I am Doc Severson. We've got Mav over here from California. We are Ready Set Crypto, and this is what we do once a week. Is called Ready Set Live, where we entertain your questions and we go over a couple of topics. So one of the things that we like to do is, while Mav finishes up his presentation, or maybe it's already done, is I'm going to take a quick look at the markets, and what usually happens is a lot of people will come back and echo and say, "Hey, look at this coin." It's usually after I'm finished. So I'm going to look through a few things here that I've seen moving, and then I'll return you back to your default view. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, after a nice little short covering session, right, has just kind of come back down again. So we're in a range contraction zone, and this is where we see a lot of power for the next move. So how will you know when this is over? Well, we've got a couple of rules here based on the fractals. First of all, rule number 3 is descending patterns will break to the upside eventually. Now, what we need is some kind of capitulation down here. You've got to get, if you want to go higher, you got to go lower first. And typically what we want to see in lower first is some type of scary event, some type of bad news where the shorts get too excited, get levered up too bigly on BitMEX, and then we crush them to the upside. This is the formula for all these short squeezes along the way. We have not yet hit that level yet. So that's Bitcoin. Pretty much the rest of the top 10 is really kind of just languishing. Not much else going on here. I do want to shout out to Decred. So this is something that our friend Checkmate is seriously into, and it is just now lifting off the bottom, and this is the first initial swing. So don't feel like you need to jump on this right away. It's got a lot of power. I would wait for the first significant higher low to kick in and then show the bottom, but Decred is starting to get somewhere. A lot of the other top 10 are just sort of languishing around here. Now, I've got some that are worth taking a look at here. As of lately, NEO is exploding. You can see this perfect, almost a beautiful ascending triangle pattern. So this ascending triangle pattern is set around here. You can see this especially if we go into something like a 5-hour chart. that's going to show really, really nicely here. So range contraction leads to range expansion. It works every single time. Look at this. I mean, if I need more evidence than this, tell me where to find it. When we have a lot of potential energy, and think of this as sort of like a spring being wound up, being coiled up in your hand until it cannot take it anymore. And that's when potential energy turns into kinetic in the form of a trend. Just like physics class from your grade school days. Chainlink is starting to come out of the gutter as well too. This was one that was just completely blown up to the upside a few weeks ago. And just like every other altcoin that we see, it gets whack-a-mole back down again. But it's showing some staying power, which is good. Okay, next one I want to go over here is, don't talk about this one very often, which is Komodo. Maybe it's Komodo, I don't know, but a Komodo dragon is something I'm used to. So again, do you jump on this one? I would say no, not at exhaustion. You can see it's just now on a weekly chart, just now coming off its initial swing. So there's no difference between what we see here. So again, just for perspective here, guys, I'm not being Dr. No here, but just for perspective, this is the same thing as this. So it's got to prove it to you. Make it prove it to you by putting in a significant higher low and then a higher high above that before you invest your hard-earned shekels. Okay, let's see what else we got. We got RLC, which I don't even know how to pronounce this. I exec RLC thing, whatever this coin is named. This is doing very, very nicely as of late. And again, a weekly chart will show you that this is the initial swing off the bottom. So don't feel like you have to jump into this right away. But notice how range contraction leads to range expansion. We'll see if this attracts the attention of the whack-a-moles out there. We've also got, this one is just now coming off. I think this is pretty much the ones that I wanted to show you with the exception of TNT. So TNT or Tiron is starting to break. This is kind of the same pattern that we saw with Chainlink as well too. And if we look at this on a weekly chart, we can see that this one is actually doing pretty well. This has actually hit a higher high, and this looks like the formation of a higher low. So Tiron is going to be very soon in a position where we can accumulate this with very low risk. So that's the list that I have here. I will comb the comments in a few minutes and see if there's anything else that we want to bring up as well too. But, you know, again, the top 10 right now, this to me is not necessarily an altcoin rally or anything like that. This is just money flowing from one level to another. There's certain reasons why things like VeChain are blowing up right now. And so money is always going to be looking for a home right now. And right now, Bitcoin's sort of in slumber. So while it's in slumber, this is kind of like what we went through last year with looking for altcoins taken off, but don't get into them too late because of the whack-a-mole thing. All right, I'm going to go look at the comments and see what you guys have to say. I'm going to pass the torch over here to Mav. Take it away, man.
Hello, hello. All right. Well, guys, I got some snacks for you in terms of news. Let's see. We got all this. I always mess this up every week. One sec here. Come on, PowerPoint, work with me.
All right, so we got, look at this. We got Romania's on today. We've got Carlos is driving by in Los Angeles, giving you a shout out. You can probably hear him from the street.
I don't know what it is, but every time I try to screen share PowerPoint, it crashes on me. It's I don't know. I've tried reinstalling this program, tried pleading with it. Nothing seems to work.
All right. While you're doing that, I'll answer some of these questions here. So go for it. Take your time.
All right.
Cardano's not really doing much of anything right now, guys. So John was asking about Cardano. It's not really doing much of anything. So again, this is the just based on the price. What I'll do. Hey, Mav, I'm gonna grab the screen again here.
Go for it.
So go fix your stuff. So, fix that stuff. So here's Cardano. It's just not doing much of anything right now. So it's not what I think about the project or the program or anything like that. This is the price telling you what, this is called price discovery, guys. It's telling you what the supply demand equation is for right now. So not all that exciting. So a lot of people asking about Ontology. Let's look at Ontology. And Ontology is actually looking good. Look at this. Look at the volume spike in Ontology. So I haven't looked at this one in some time. This is something's going on here. This is money coming into this and range expansion, range contraction, range expansion again, back up to the upside. I like that. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. Are we too late? Are we too late on this one? Let's reset this. No, we're not too late. Remember, there is no medal given for getting the very bottom tick. A lot of people like to feel like they're getting the very bottom tick and they're uncomfortable with buying the highs. Remember, this is what is one of the old concepts that you can learn from guys like Nicholas Darvis and Jesse Livermore is new highs beget new highs, just like new lows beget new lows on a downtrend. If something's truly in accumulation phase, don't worry about buying new highs, which would be the breakout. Okay, so on a weekly chart for Ontology, I'm not quite there yet, but this could be the formation of a higher low, so that's good. Let's see, what else do we have? Dimek is looking for XVG, X-Ray Victor George. Let's see what we got here. Let's look at this versus the US dollar for right now. And I got nothing. Okay, XVG is just in a liquid Papa Oscar Sierra. Let's put it that way, okay? There's no liquidity in this. Don't be chasing after something like this. You can just see the liquidity in a coin or an asset if you've got gaps all over the place. I mean, the only reason why we would have gaps in crypto is if there's no liquidity. Crypto charts should not be gapping if there's liquidity. So I would not, I would step back from this one. How you doing, Mav?
I think we're ready to go.
Okay.
I think once it gets the one crash out of its system, then it lets me do what I want to do. But I begged and pleaded.
Did you genuflect and?
Oh man, yeah, right. Oh, heck.
Hey, you got it.
Maybe. Is that working?
Okay, so for those of you that are desperately putting down coin tickers, I'll get back to you guys in just a minute here after Mav is done.
I gotta take my time. All right, is that the full screen? Are we good to go? Have I embarrassed myself enough?
No, this is what we've come to expect from you.
Oh, okay, good. All right, guys. Yeah, so what's the market's next move? I'm going to explore stuff from the fundamental side for those who haven't been around before, or it's been a couple of weeks, so I understand if a little bit rusty here. But first, I want to cover. All right, go. It froze for a sec, but we're good. Just want to cover the most recent class that we put out around financial independence. It's our biggest class ever. It's 7 hours. I think there's a lot of value in it. And it basically helps you kind of get out of the paycheck to paycheck, moving along month to month, not really sure what you're doing, to having like a financial plan and how to achieve that. It's something I'm really passionate about, especially as it relates to using crypto as a tool to achieve financial independence, not being dependent on a job or anything like that, and being able to retire when you want to, how you want to. So check that out at readysetcrypto.com/freedom. So what's going on? What's going on in the markets? What's kind of driving things? And really what I want to address with today is sort of two of the major macro forces I see pushing this space kind of from the top down as it relates to Bitcoin, but also sort of cryptocurrency in general. So the first thing I want to talk about is the digital euro news that we've recently heard about, talked about. And basically the ECB, the European Central Bank, is exploring what it would take to create a digital euro similar to China and the digital yuan, which I'm told is not how you pronounce it, but I don't care. I'm going to keep saying it because I'm a Guaylo.
How do you pronounce it? What's the proper way to do it?
I looked it up on Google and it said You won. So you know what? I don't know. I'm just gonna keep being.
That sounds very Texas. Hey
Yeah,
y'all, you want some
yeah.
you on?
So yeah, I think what's important for us to recognize is the quickly evolving narrative around centralized cryptocurrency, government controlled, issued. This is a new sort of venture, a new form of cryptocurrency blockchain technology that we've seen maybe in limited uses in the past, but this I think is really the harbinger of how the world is becoming more automated. We're moving towards a new digital economy. Assets are being digitized, and quite frankly, governments will not be able to avoid this trend. They have to keep up with the way the world's evolving, or they will be left behind. Certainly, this is becoming something. I think what's really putting this into perspective is sort of the triple axis of the digital currency wars. That sounded way more dramatic than it is, but um, what we're really seeing is the emergence of three different narratives as it relates to currency, or rather digital currency. You first have open finance with cryptocurrency, and this is what we're used to. This is the open finance, DLT, industry that it's all about, basically open source, allowing anybody to see what everybody's doing in terms of transactions, and having technology out there that facilitates better economic liquidity and just cross-border remittance and things of this sort. You guys know what this is. This is our bread and butter. This is what we care about. Um, on the opposite side of things, we're seeing government run, or as I like to call it, the control currencies. These are going to be government issued. In some ways, there's going to be different interpretations of what this necessitates versus, is China going to use that to better control citizens? Is the ECB going to, how are they going to interpret what this means? Does the US Fed issue some sort of central control currency? There's a lot unknown right now about control currencies, but I think it's going to be something we're going to see more and more of very soon. And lastly, we have the private consortia, the corpo currencies, as I like to refer to them. Libra was the first iteration of that, the first true iteration we saw of it. But I think we're going to see many, many more attempts at finding ways to blend consumer and personal data, which is very, very powerful. That's you basically have both hands in the cookie jar at that point. That's exactly what Facebook wanted to do, but unfortunately, well, for them, they were, you had Zuck called up on the hill and eviscerated. But what I want to make sure people recognize is something he said there, which is that if America doesn't innovate, our financial leadership is not guaranteed. You can disagree with a lot of his morality. Please do. But I think he's right in this regard, because 2 days later, President Xi came out and said, blockchain is central to, it's important to our economic freedom. And he handpicked blockchain along with two other major technology infrastructures that they're going to be, placing emphasis on, AI and 5G. To them, the synthesis of these three disparate technologies coming together is something very powerful. This is something that I've talked about a lot on this channel very recently, about seeing how we can blend blockchain with a lot of the other emerging innovation platforms, be that IoT, be that AI, be that 5G, be that, just the globalization movement going on right now. That is where we find adoption for this space. But unfortunately, the governments of the world start to recognize that as well. So just as we're trying to uplift and go bottom up, they're coming top down, and it's sort of a race right now. But yeah, I think this has also highlighted the fact that, especially over the past couple weeks, fintech is really the new trade war battleground. We've already covered agriculture and import export and tariffs and blah blah blah. There's so many different avenues that the trade war has, or forms that it's taken. But now I think it's going to be defined by the U.S. or China taking the lead in terms of fintech innovation, and it's something that I don't think, especially after we saw what happened to Zuck on the Hill, it doesn't seem to be a prerogative for the U.S. So I think hopefully they turn that around. But there's once you fall behind on something, it's hard to catch up, especially as it relates to innovation. So that I think is going to be one major force for us in terms of as fintech, as the world starts to digitize and move towards digital assets and currencies, we're well positioned to take advantage of that, to be an alternative asset class, to be a harder form of currency than fiat currency, and it's going to do well for us. I think that was also exacerbated. Uh, this was a slide from our 1030 presentation, October 30th, where the Fed cut the rates by 25 basis points, and they indicated that a pause was ahead. And that just came out today. Chairman Jerome Powell came out and said, we're not anticipating any sort of necessary forces that would force us to lower rates anymore after 3 rate cuts in the past, this year. But at the same time, I think we know not to trust the Fed and their outlook on the economy, nor how they interpret it. I think they are very subject to larger macro forces right now.
Bunch of bloody academics getting together.
Right, right. One thing I do think that people are starting to conflate with, first off, the U.S., but interest rates in general, is this trend towards negative interest rates around the world. So this is something I think. First off, we look at the U.S. I don't think we're going to see negative interest rates in the states anytime soon, but we're quickly living in a world of possibilities that defy expectations. But I think the U.S. is one of the isolated cases that will not trend towards negative interest rates. They might trend towards zero, but I don't think they're going to flip over to the negative side. But I think this also kind of necessitates larger conversation about the world and many of the economic forces going on right now, because what we're seeing, the narrative that's being built is that as countries, as central banks push negative interest rates, it pushes people towards risk on assets like Bitcoin, like crypto assets, because people are looking for an alternative means of storing value. Like I said, a harder form of currency versus fiat, and seems to bolster the appeal of this space and the assets inherent to it. So one thing I do need to sort of address is that I think there's a lot of misunderstanding of what negative interest rates are. So I don't want to boil the ocean and be pedantic on this point, but I think it would be prescient of me to at least give some indication as to what they mean. First off, I think a lot of people try to surmise what negative interest rates will cause or where we're going with them. The fact of the matter is, 10 years ago, if you had suggested that we would be entertaining negative interest rates, that we'd be trending towards negative interest rates on a macro scale, you would have been laughed at because they're just that absurd of a concept. But unfortunately, or fortunately, they seem to have become the overall arching narrative rhetoric around monetary policy right now. One thing to stress is that there will never be a time when you're paid to borrow money. That's not what negative interest rates mean. In fact, you will never see them in your bank account, if that makes sense. Negative interest rates are more they're applicable to the big institutions, and you see that percolate down to the average consumer through the lack of returns in their account, be that bank account, checking account, savings account, whatever. That is how negative interest rates affect the average consumer. So people are indirectly incentivized to take their money out of banks and put it into the economy, invest in companies, invest in stocks, invest a little bit more speculative, more risk on, which is the entire point of why negative interest rates have been entertained and put forth, is to start to incentivize the average investor to stop hoarding their cash reserves and put them back into the economy. This is what the central thesis of why central banks exist, is to drive that sort of demand or economic activity through monetary policy. That's what they're trying to do. Now, what quickly becomes apparent is that there's nowhere to go once you've gone negative. So if the economy starts to reverse, we quickly get into a very interesting conundrum. This is highlighted by a lot of the tenets of modern monetary theory, and don't want to get into that right now. But I think what's important is that we are in a very interesting period in terms of economic policy and where we go from here. There's a lot of different options, but I think it's very imperative to us to look at what we are building with crypto assets and all alternative assets in general, and use them maybe initially as an alternative, but ultimately as a safe haven and a true uh, alternative choice against race to the bottom monetary policy. So those are the two major forces that I'm seeing kind of prop up this space from a top down perspective. Those being negative interest rates and those being centralized currencies that are starting to enter the market. I think both of these are going to be huge drivers of interest in Bitcoin and the larger crypto asset space, directly or indirectly, as market forces shift. So, a couple more things to kind of cover in terms of more relevant short term news. One thing I really was appreciative of is Samsung is starting to, through their developer program, they just released an SDK, which is a software development kit for the non developer people out there. And that basically means they've given a toolbox to developers, specifically around mobile, to develop blockchain apps, to develop tools to utilize blockchain. And the thing to note with this is, first off, they've got a great video on the Samsung developers YouTube channel. So go watch that. It's like 2 minutes and 48 seconds, and it does a great job of like highlighting what blockchain is and the different applications of it. It's great. They did a good job. But the second thing to note is that they're utilizing Ethereum, and that's not an accident. Because 93 of the top 100 tokens by market capitalization, sorry, are compliant with the ERC20 standard, and just about every non-fungible token project is using ERC 721. So yeah, I think what we're seeing over and over again is the emerging narrative around Ethereum being the hub of developer activity, at least in the short term as it relates to blockchain development, and dApp development and things of that sort. Um, yeah, it's showing that the prowess in that regard. Another thing to note was that was a Chain Analysis just put out a great report where they surveyed a lot of financial institutions and asked them some questions about what is keeping them out of blockchain and what would help them get into it. And a lot of that was around, well, there's some risk involved, but really it's there's a lack of support, there's a lack of custodianship, there's just a lack of the financial tools, institutional level tools that we need to guarantee our clients, our investors, the sort of security and safety that we've come to be accustomed to with the traditional finance outlets. That will change. That's a very solvable problem. And in fact, I think that's something we're going to see over the next year. Um, Another thing to note is that asset management is becoming quickly becoming a very killer application for blockchain and blockchain development and blockchain adoption. Asset management is really short term, or well, I guess longer form for STOs. Security tokens are one form of that, and it's really becoming a fantastic utilization of the tenets of blockchain. Don't get me wrong, security tokens are centralized by design. That's not a mistake. Like you're tokenizing an asset, which is by default it's centralized, but that's okay. It's the bridge that helps get people into the larger blockchain space. It helps to build the necessary bridges to span the legacy finance system and the new digital economy and the technologies involved with that. So I think what's really going to be apparent to us is how much how much capital is about to enter this space, how much development and utilization we're going to find through security tokens, because it really is becoming an ancillary great use case for blockchain in general. And it's showing the world the potential of going digital, of utilizing some of the technologies and the merits of what we built here. And it really helps destroy the narrative of, well, blockchain is a scam, or it's a technology that has no usage, because that's not true at all. And STOs are one great rebuttal to that. One other thing to note is this was another slide from our 1030 presentation where the CME revealed some of the details regarding their upcoming Bitcoin futures contracts. We just got news about the actual launch date for that, which is January 13th, 2020. Doc has expressed he's quite remiss as it relates to the finer details of these contracts, and furthermore that they are they're out of the reach of most investors. This also is in parallel to Backed, which is going to be launching on December 9th. So we're seeing within the next 2 months, 2 major financial institutions come to market with Bitcoin options contracts, as well as many of the futures products that are getting launched right now. Some of the potential Ethereum futures products. So we're just seeing, going into 2020, a lot of very strong interest and development from the institutional side that is really going to drive interest and adoption of this space, and is really going to bring a lot of capital and volume and volatility back to the space that we've been desperate for, and help kickstart some of the innovation and development and just the energy of the space again. Again, we are not dependent on this. I think there's been a good both bottom up and top down approach to this. We've been building for the last 2 years. We haven't slowed down. Well, we have slowed down, but we haven't lost sight of what's important in terms of what this space represents and what it could be. And at the same time, the institutions, now that there's starting to be regulatory certainty and sort of custodianship and tools necessary to help onboard them, they're starting to come on and play the game. So there's just a lot of forces at the right time with the right tools. There's a lot of good energy, good vibes going into 2020. And with that, that shall conclude today's Death by PowerPoint. So thanks for sticking around. We'll take some questions for a little bit here and get out of your hair.
A couple of things on options. So first of all, a CME options contract is going to be a notional value of $50,000. So it's going to be similar to like an S&P 500 notional contract. Actually, the S&P 500 contract is much more than that, but it's a big boy contract. This is not going to be for your average retail trader. So the initial, once the CME options, and you can't just go out to the CME and say, okay, I'd like an option, please, or I'd like to buy or sell options. You have to do it through a broker. And this is very different from, like, if you go to a Deribit. If you go to Deribit, they're an exchange and a broker, right? If you go to Binance, it's an exchange and a broker. If you go to just about anybody else, it's an exchange and a broker. Like even Coinbase is like that. But that's not the way that traditional US-based systems are. Well, actually, pretty much everything in equities is like that. You've got exchanges and brokers. So when you see CME, when you see Backed, those are exchanges, and they've got to offer their products through brokers. And so right now you can't just, log on to back.com and set up an account. You can't do that. You have to talk your broker into offering, like go out and set up a relationship with there because I'd like to be able to trade that. So my sense is that in January, we will have the CME options available. I don't know when the Backed options are going to come, but
December 9th.
December 9th. Okay. So, but that has to be integrated through your broker. So you've got to talk TD Ameritrade into setting up that relationship. Because I've already done that. I've already talked to TD Ameritrade and said, hey, when are you guys going to, and they're like, we don't know. It may take a while. So go ahead and bug your broker and ask him about that, because the more you do that, the more pressure we can put on them, and the chances are improved for that. Something else, though, on that same line, So again, for you Yanks out there, LedgerX is actually an options broker, which is based in the left coast. And they are an actual, honest to God, Bitcoin options broker slash exchange. I don't know how they did it, but they were able to do it, right? So this is competition for Deribit. They're not quite as good in terms of liquidity. You can't go in there and negotiate bid and ask. I mean, it's really kind of very Fisher Price kind of stuff. But now they're putting in mini contracts, which are going to be worth 1/100th of a BTC, which is more in line, I think, with where people need to be trading. Most people have smaller accounts that are, small four figures and stuff like that. This is going to be perfect for that. So I'm looking forward to them announcing those or getting those contracts out there and actually trading with them, and hope to God we can get some liquidity on these things, because right now you could drive a truck through the spreads, the bid-ask spreads that are out there. Oh, let's see. What else you got?
Institutional money incoming meme. Oh, cool. All right. So to address that, yeah, I agree that it sometimes is a meme that like, oh, here comes backed. Oh, the Bitcoin ETF. It's going to unlock all this potential. Where we're going to see true growth for this space and institutional money incoming is not just the institutions, but the clients that they represent. Like Doc was saying, the brokerage, the exchange, etc. Basically, when you have the potential of a financial advisor at a bank branch saying to mom and pop, saying, hey, I've got the best performing asset of this year, would you like to invest 1% of your portfolio into it? That is the institutional money incoming. It's not just TD Ameritrade or Fidelity investing their money. It's them investing their clients' money or giving them the access to do so. That is very different than just the sense of like, oh, big institutions. No, they're opening the doors because they're handling all. You don't want mom and pop managing private keys if they don't need to. I'm sorry for those who are the sort of libertarian front that like want everybody to be their own bank, but at the end of the day, like you don't. Not everyone needs to. It's great to have the option, but some people just want accessibility, and that's okay. Like we don't have to force that on them. Giving them an option is great, but I think for us in the space and the future of it, it's really about opening up the adoption avenues through accessibility, and one piece of that is institutional onboarding. So, okay, said my piece.
Okay, so I got a number of coins that are backed up here. All right, so let's throw it over here to the chart. So let's see. I have already talked about RLC. So RLC, we talked about range contraction, range expansion. This one looks good. And on the weekly chart, starting to swing to the upside. So that's the last I will say on RLC. So a number of other ones came into this. So everybody's saying, okay, what about Ethereum? And my comment earlier was like, most of the top 10 is just doing nothing. It's just grinding away. Most of the top 10, and this is Ethereum, it's Litecoin is just grinding away, right? It's just range contraction, accumulation. We have the same thing with EOS. These charts are almost, you could overlay them on top of each other. Now, Tron actually has been doing, believe it or not, let's see, where is Tron? I got it down here somewhere. Tron's actually been in accumulation, which is good. So you can see this, the initial weekly swing up here, which means that we have now an uptrend on the daily chart, which is good. Let's see. Somebody was asking for Bitcoin trash. What do we got here? You might look at the daily chart and say, my God, it's a rally. But then again, you put on the weekly chart and you say, this thing is barely just lifting off, barely doing anything at all. So I'm not inclined to just jump on it. Remember, there's no medal given out for getting the very bottom tick. Nobody's going to stop by your house and throw a ceremony to say, my God, you've got the bottom tick. You rock. All right, let's see. We have Stellar. Stellar's actually been doing better lately. This is Stellar USD. It's been doing better lately. And this is an actual, honest to God, weekly swing to the upside. Let me actually go down here and look at this versus Bitcoin. Yeah, it's a very, very mild trend. If we actually throw this versus Bitcoin, it's not doing so well. Now, some other people have talked about Digitex as well too. The pattern with Digitex is that it pumps prior to the release date, and then it gets trashed because they come up with an excuse as to why it's not going to work this time. And that's what we've been dealing with for the last almost 18 months.
Buy the rumor, sell the excuse.
Yeah, something like that. That's pretty good. But something tells me that this time is going to be different. But are they too late? Is zero commissions already a thing of the past? Right. So we've already had that driven by Schwab and TD Ameritrade and Fidelity and things like that. So zero commissions is coming. They had their moment in the sun. Myself, actually, the biggest thing about Digitex is the fact that they're going to be using a ladder, number one, and the fact that you can really get the position size down to something where you just don't even care about it, based on the value of that token. So can us Yankees trade on Digitex? The latest rumor that I heard was that they're going to be doing KYC, which means nada. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with that. I will get a chance to play with the beta version of it, hopefully, and then we'll see where it goes from there, because nobody's going to be knocking at your door and saying it's illegal to get on there. They're just going to be blocking people based on their fear that the SEC is going to get involved. So I don't think it's necessarily something illegal to do.
Thanks, Brown Puppy. We are big brain time on this channel. And Rohit, I like we've talked about during the course of this stream, there, be that institutionalization, be that central currencies, the government issue currencies, be that macro monetary forces. Quite honestly, I think the Bitcoin halving is the least interesting thing that's going to happen next year in terms of price potential. It's definitely going to cause some volatility, but it's already priced in some respects. So, everybody knows it's coming. I think we are definitely going to see some interesting price movement next year, if that helps answer your question. I don't know if that's a bull run or not. It needs to be able to sustain itself for that to happen.
Oh, go on, shill away.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of converging forces that are shaping up to be, again, though, it's this space is about the long term as much as it is exciting to see the bull run. You as an investor being in early in this space should not be celebrating or hoping for the bull run. You should be waiting for the drops in price so you can buy more. That's the same thing that you should be looking at the stock market. Like the fact that the stock market is hitting all-time highs, that's great if you just want to continue to hold. But if you want a buying opportunity, you wait for a pullback. So don't be the herd. Don't be waiting for the bull run. Wait for the upside, then downside, and then find your buy opportunities there. But like again, it just don't put all your hopes into the bull run.
Okay, so we'll finish off here with the last couple of questions. Brian, do I still believe that PrimeXBT is a good exchange to use? Yeah, I have used the exchange successfully. I've actually, it was a little bit of a problem to pull my BTC off, because what I decided to do was, pull it off and throw it onto another broker and check that out as well too. So I was using PrimeXBT earlier this year, and it was fine. So I'm not supposed to be doing that, right? Just like all the other, like sign your life away, T's and C's. But I believe that, again, but it's what the exchange I believe is based in Russia. So what are they going to do, right? So much sadness in crypto these days.
There is. To that point, I do want a bull run just for people to stop moping around and be like, do you realize the space you're in? Do you realize how early you are? Do you realize like what you're a part of in this space? Because if you just look at the charts on a daily or weekly basis, yeah, you're probably gonna get disappointed. But if you have the long term approach in mind, if you have the 5 year investing horizon at the minimum, then it doesn't matter as much. It doesn't matter what CZ or Justin Sun said or Roger Ver or Craig Wright. All that is noise. All this stuff about the price movement and whatnot. Unless you are actively trading it, if you're just sitting there and hodling, don't worry about it. It's okay. Like wait for things to move in certain directions and then act upon them. But don't sit here and say, "Oh man, I can't wait till it looks like 2017 again," because it won't. Hey,
Yeah, it'll
we
never
will.
be 2017 again. It'll be
Yeah,
2017 in different forms. The
sure.
other thing I would say is like it's always darkest before the dawn. So go back to last spring, the spring this year, and you know how everybody was moping around, and then all of a sudden April came along and boom. It's always darkest before the dawn. This is what we do need, and we haven't gotten true capitulation before to this point, not like we've gotten in the past. uh, that's always something I'm looking for because capitulation means you've gotten way too many people on the wrong side of the ledger, way too committed with their position size, and then that's when they get run over.
Yeah.
So, to some degree, and this is something I've had to learn the hard way over the years, is that the opportunity is always when things are super, super negative, when it looks like it's over, shut out the lights, the party's over. That's usually when something is right around the corner.
Yeah.
It is dark at night. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely darkest in winter solstice. Uh,
Now we got testicle references that we're almost done.
all right. Time to shut it
Yeah,
off.
just about done here. So
uh, yeah, the question, Carlos, about DeFi Lockup. We were talking about the beginnings of the DeFi space like a year ago. I don't know, like we've kind of taken a pause on looking at that stuff, just simply because we felt it needed to grow up a little bit more. There is a lot of risk when you're giving people decentralized loans and things of that sort. So I've been extremely happy to see how DeFi has grown over the last year. Regarding specific advice or guidance as to how to stake it, or place it into like Compound and use Uniswap and use collateralized debt positions. Quite honestly, there's a lot of research out there or a lot of education to help you go through that. So I don't know how useful a specific guide would be, but if that's something that you really need, I'm sure we could do an updated version of that. I know we've done it in the past, or a limited version of that. So sorry, that's not a great answer, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on with DeFi. So definitely keep your eye on it.
you know, uh, some people are asking like, "Hey, when's the next movement going to come?" Like, I think it's hilarious that this space has cultivated this sort of notion that somebody that's been around knows when something's going to happen going forward in the future. I myself don't have that particular crystal ball sitting around or anything like that, nor does anyone else. Now, what you've got to do as an educated consumer is, as they say, sort of sort out the fly shit from the pepper, if you will, right? Because look, nobody has a view into the future. Some people have different analysis skills. What I tend to do is I tend to block in the price action to say, look, if it goes above this level, then this is what I will do. Not whether it's going to go above that level, but if it goes above this level, this is what I will do. If it goes below this level, this is what I will do. And that's the way you have to look at this, is that it's a series of probabilities, that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. And in fact, the more that you are convinced that something will happen in the future, the more that you're going to be on the wrong side of the price, because chances are you're going to be trading with the herd, and the herd always gets it wrong. And this is why people are like a deer in the headlights, like, what the hell? That's not supposed to happen. And that's because herd behavior. So when everybody gets negative, this is why we typically see it reverse and go back up again and bake the shorts like nobody's business. And the opposite is when everybody is convinced that this is it. FOMO, it's, heading higher. Here we go, 20,000. This is where we get ripped, right? So learn to trade against the herd. Learn not to listen to people that are predicting the future. Ignore that crap. Just turn it off, because nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. That's good. That's good. All right. Hey, guys, thanks, everybody. We are going to tune things out for today. Thanks for all your questions and the excellent interaction that we had with you guys. We are Ready, Set Crypto. You can get us on our website. You can subscribe to our newsletter if you look for the links that are, right down from the header here. And we look forward to serving you and or seeing you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks, everybody. Doc is out. See you guys.
Cheers.